So Michael and I did a podcast this morning with TAO Living with Dr. Lou Corletto. And I just noticed that, and this kind of goes in with, Susan, what you were talking about with Dr. Tim about how you draw things to yourself, and I didn't ask for this, and so forth. Well, his tagline on his podcast site is, where you will be supported to remember that you are the driver and not the vehicle, so you can walk through your life in trust. And it also reminded me, and I've mentioned it many times, the story of Peter stepping out of the boat and walking on water towards Yeshua. The storm didn't stop. The storm didn't change. It was still going on. But it was where Peter's focus was, and his mental and spiritual awareness of where he was in the midst of the storm that allowed him to walk on water. When he started looking at the circumstance, then he sank. And so we may say, I didn't ask for this to happen to me, but somehow we did participate in it. We may not be responsible for what happened, but we are responsible for drawing it into our space, whatever it is. And it's our option how we want to look at it, whether we want to walk on top of the water or whether we want to sink. And Michael, I'll introduce you first, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody.
That podcast will be on our website once he gets it edited and set up.
Yeah, I said probably a week or so, but it was a really good interview. It went really well. It was he's a chiropractor. He actually went to the chiropractic college that I taught at 40 years ago, and so we have a lot of things in common with our thinking. So there was enhancements that came from both sides. He had some really great ideas that tapped into what we're doing, and so it was a sweet, sweet interview. Maybe one of the best that we've done, just the way it got to be so concise. But, Yeshua says to us, and he's very conscious, I believe, when he says this. He says, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. And then our modern equivalent for that word would be the unconscious. Take care of the unconscious. People say, I didn't ask for this, but the asker is not in the conscious mind. The asker is in the unconscious. If you've got 1,000 generations behind you of unresolved trauma in a particular arena, then you have an energetic pattern for that, whatever that experience is. And you then become a magnetic field, literally gravity, energetically pulling that experience to you. That's why he said, take care of the heart. You've got to look where the asker is. And if 1,000 generations, the average person who tells you about what it is they hate in their lives tells you how, well, I don't want this, and I don't want this, and I don't want this. And by focusing on all the things they didn't want, remember, focusing is a creative act. Yeshua says, here's how it works. Let thine eye be single, and thy body will be filled with light. Now, the physicists are telling us that matter is light energy, solidified, reduced in its rate of vibration. Einstein says so as to become perceptible to the senses. Singular focus on a frequency. So you listen to the person who's been abused, and I'm never going to get in relationship with another person who abused me, and those abusers are terrible, and you listen to all the energy they've got around abuse, and they are a magnetic field. They are literally gravity that will draw abuse to them. It's just the way the creative process works. So, yes, it was so clear 2,000 years ago. It's the unconscious. And most people function out of the unconscious. Another code word for that unconscious mind in the ancient teachings was the desert. You remember there was a group of people who spent 40 years ostensibly in a 35 square mile area lost, which is pretty silly when you realize that that group of people knew how astronomy worked very well, and if they wanted to get out of a 35 square mile area, they'd have gotten up in the morning and they'd watched the rising sun and they'd watched the direction it was going, and if they wanted to go west, they'd have gone, and by sunrise they'd be a long way around or along in getting out of that 35 square mile area. So it wasn't talking about a hot sandy place. The desert is the unconscious. And you remember they said in order to move from the desert, the place of unconscious co-creation. Why is this happening? I don't know. I never asked for this. To recognizing your askers in your heart, and if there are unresolved generational energies, the longer they've been going on, the more amplitude energetically they have, the faster your gravitational field's going to pull somebody in to do it to you again. And when they do it to you again, you'll do one of two things. You'll live in the world that the world has trained you to live in, denial. And what's that going to look like? You hurt me. You made me mad. You made me sad. That really upset me. They disturbed me. When I live in that world, that's called the world of denial. When I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, then I hide what's moving inside of me. I just created an unconscious condition in myself. Most people spend about 40 years there, 40 years in the desert. What had happened for that group of people to get out of the desert? It said the old generation had to die off. That didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. The causes held in mind from unresolved generational dynamics creates a gravitational field that no matter where you were, if there is only one person on planet Earth and that person is in the middle of, the most remote parts of the Himalaya mountains right now, you have an appointment with them and you are going to find your way to each other. If that's the only person that can deliver to you what you have a gravitational field for, somewhere, some way, it'll seem totally haphazard, totally by accident. I don't know where that came from. But you guys are working toward connecting with each other. And if you denial and you tell them how they've done to you what's paining you inside, then you'll dissociate at another level, create another deeper layer of unconsciousness. Or the other reaction is, the other response can be, an action can be, oh, I've been through this traumatic energy 87 different times with 42 different people. My mind has been telling me forever that it's caused from outside of me, but I'm starting to think that maybe, seeing as how I was there every time, maybe it's got something to do with me. Maybe I'm involved in life. And yes, the keys for how to open the unconscious mind, how to get to the hidden part of the mind that keeps playing out over and over and over again in your life. It was interesting with Dr. Corletto this morning. I'd watched one of his videos on his site when he invited us to do his podcast, and he was describing some traumas that he'd been through, some physical accident, quote-unquote accidents, and that his life really shifted when he decided to take responsibility for those things. And one of the things that he asked in the, or mentioned in it, was that he was asking himself the question, why is this happening to me again? The only things that can come to you are the things that you give permission, and you give permission by asking. And again, your asker is in your unconscious. So this master showed us exactly how to open the veil of the temple, the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious, how to access what underlies it and how to remove it. And removal of that stuff is called forgiveness. So that's what we're here to understand and make available. Come out of the desert, the unconscious, and into the light. So glad you're here. And Miss Susan, do you have any other thoughts for us? I didn't hear your conversation with Tim. I just heard Jeannie's allusion to what you were talking about with him.
Oh, hi, guys. Well, first of all, we missed you yesterday. I was thinking everything might not be okay, but you just needed to drop out for a while, right? And not do the show.
All things are rock and roll, but we had an event that we needed to participate in with family yesterday. So,
okay.
It was
yes,
actually
all
day
is well.
before yesterday. Yeah.
Oh,
I guess it was the day before yesterday, right? Yes. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, good. Okay. Right. Good. Yeah, Dr. Tim finished reading The Way of Mastery, and it's a beautiful, I'd like to hear it again. And I have it in front of me, too. I mean, I can follow right along, but...
and you've got the recording, so you can listen to it as often as you want.
Right, that's true. The idea that we draw things to ourselves, that we are creators of our lives and everything that happens in them. I can get that intellectually, but I don't feel it yet. But what I do feel,
Right.
and it's been extremely helpful, is that once whatever is happening is here, my attitude toward it is something I feel I have a say in. I don't feel I have a say in the other stuff yet. And I don't know whether we get to have a say in it in a conscious, logical way. But that was sort of what we were talking about. I've got these, I told
Right.
you, I think I've got these hives all over my torso. And I went to see the dermatologist, and he said he's seen a lot of this in people who have had COVID. And I did have a very mild case of COVID, and now I have this. And he said, it'll go away in about 6 months, which is good news.
Oh, thanks.
I thought I did. Yeah, I thought I might have some. You know, when you're as old as I am, I think, well, maybe this is what I'm going to check out with. So I was thinking, well, is this my exit routine? You know, and I drew this to myself. So I don't know. I have no way of handling that. I don't know how to incorporate that fact into my life, but I do feel as if the worksheets, and I've done quite a number of them on having hives and other things this week, and they've been helpful, and I've just developed the feeling that I'm going to be curious and even bless the hives.
There you go.
I know that sounds crazy.
No,
makes me laugh.
it doesn't sound the least bit crazy.
Anyway, so that's what we were talking about, how the two sides of that coin, we draw it to ourselves, and then we have a choice about how we actually react, respond, and carry on. I can do one side of the coin, but not the other. And if you have some advice about that, I'd love it.
Well, let me introduce you to this amazing tool that we have. It's called a reality management worksheet.
And I know about that worksheet.
And what it does is it puts you into deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper touch with your own unconscious dynamics. I just had a conversation with a minister a few minutes before the show who was texting me and asked me if they could talk to me about forgiveness a little bit because they were going to do a sermon and wanted to have some more understanding of it. And so we had our conversation about that. And she dropped me a text that I just answered, and based on our conversation, she's like, well, I remember years ago somebody said something about people who are in mental institutions, and X number of them, some large percentage, just need forgiveness, and asked me if I had heard of that research and what the number was. I said, well, no, but I haven't heard of the research, but the number is 100%. Because if there's any sort of anomaly in our physiology, our psychology, our genetics, our family systems, our finances, our businesses, our neighborhoods, our communities, our country, our world, there is only one thing that can cause that. Only one. And that is an energy locked into the system that doesn't belong in the system. And there's only one consistent, persistent way that I know of to access and remove that energy. It's called a worksheet. Now, around any given issue, I might do, as Yeshua said, 77 times 70 worksheets before I finally am, one, vital enough, or two, willing to open and breathe deeply enough to access that which is hidden in me. And when I do, then that's going to be removed. And so, that's what we're here to cover up. The question is, it kind of, ties in. The question that this minister was asking me, they'd sent me a quote from the book of Micah, 7 and 8 in Micah. And the quote goes, "Who is a God like unto thee, that pardoneth iniquity, and passeth by transgression of the remnant of his heritage," generational patterns. "He retaineth," the Creator, "he retaineth not his anger forever, because he delighteth in mercy. He will turn again, he will have compassion upon us, he will subdue our iniquities, and thou wilt cast all their sins into the depths of the sea." And she was trying to tie that together with forgiveness because she thought that this was talking about forgiveness. Because after all, it said pardon. But actually, pardoning, as we know, is a totally different act from forgiveness. It's interesting the misinterpretations happen in the world around this whole idea of forgiveness, especially as it relates to pardoning. It would be accurate to say the Creator might, or you or I might pardon a person because they do something crazy. It's like, why would I hold anything about what you did in me? It just doesn't make any sense. So I can let you off the hook. I can, whatever you do, it's up to you. It's only going to impact you. It's not going to impact me. So the Creator is like speaking here, specifically is talking about pardoning those energetic patterns that we do that are off the path. And he's just going to like pass over, just let totally loose, like has no involvement, no concern. We hear people, or I've seen people with bumper stickers in their cars that say, "I've been forgiven." Nobody has ever been forgiven and will never be forgiven. And we cannot forgive anybody, and nobody can ever forgive us. And God is never going to forgive anybody for anything, because forgiveness has nothing to do with this idea of pardoning, of letting people off the hook. Forgiveness is the act of going inside of oneself and setting the stage for the energetic pattern that's creating the disorder to be removed. And it doesn't matter what the expression, it doesn't matter what the symptoms of it are. I might do 77 times 70 worksheets before I get to the state of willingness where I'm really, truly ready to have this, whatever it is, removed from me. And you've heard that line before, God who takest away the sins of the world. God does not forgive sins, but if we've, out of our own volition and free will, chosen to engage in energy that's destructive to us, the Creator's never going to take that away from us because we've got free will. It's like it would be a violation. However, if I'm willing to do my part in the process of having it removed, if I've got something that, let's say, goes back 30 generations, great, grandparent who went through this terrible thing, and now it's expressing in my physiology, do I know how to go in and remove that? I don't have a clue. The Creator's not ever going to hold anything like that against us. And if I do my part in the forgiveness process, and that's what the forgiveness, the reality management worksheet's about, then the Creator's compassion, the second paragraph of this quote from Micah, the Creator's compassion shows up, reflects on us, and it says, "We'll subdue our iniquities and cast their sins," remember sin being off the mark, "into the depths of the sea." In other words, remove the energy. It's going to drop into it's like it's no longer going to be active or present in us. And it's a really profound couple of paragraphs about forgiveness when you recognize that pardoning and forgiveness are two different things. You're both covered here. So next worksheet. And I know that over the years I've had to develop much patience because of, for instance, symptoms in my own physiology. I lived with back pain for till about 10 years ago. Or maybe it's a little more than that. 15 years ago, maybe we did that orthobiotic class at Heartland. And that's something I worked on for decades. And finally, it's gone. I haven't had back pain in, 15 years or more. So it went from where it was literally disabling to where I could do anything, over the years, but it was still always there. And then when my field was ready and the support was there, and it was Jeannie who supported me to open that, bingo, it's gone, that's all. So I don't know when any given thing's going to open for you or I or anybody that's doing the work. I just know that when the energetic dynamics are right and I'm ready and I'm willing, the energy will be lifted. The only thing that remains to be done is me giving permission for it to be lifted, because it is my or my generational will that's brought it into my field. Go ahead.
You're doing it. You're making the connection. I feel as if I'm walking backwards in time.
What you have to do.
This is probably so basic to the work, but you have helped me connect the idea that we create we made an agreement somewhere way back when we don't remember it. We can find our way there, maybe not literally, like it wasn't Aunt Frances who did this in 1842, but if we do the work, something gets open, but it isn't. You've said this, and so I'm just repeating, but it's not the conscious, logical mind that can find the way there. You trust a process,
Exactly.
You ask to be shown, but you find the point where you created it.
Exactly.
Holy cool, that's so cool.
And creating the space for the opening to occur, for it to be lifted. And as that passage in Mike says, cast into the sea. You know, it's like it's gone. It's no longer a part of your structure. Yeah. It's exited. But as long as that energy's there, and when you realize how massive the genetic database is, and that it includes the whole history of your bloodline, it's a fairly complicated, well, it's something we'll never figure out, but whatever it is, it can be forgiven.
The connecting, there's a connection that's made that's beyond our direct control, but it's accessible through the wake-up sheet and the willingness.
Exactly. Precisely.
Okay.
And when I think about, and it's the only way I know of that can consistently, persistently take us there. You know, as I said, I think I was talking about it yesterday with Dr. Tim, and talked about, you know, how he can hand this and anybody can produce the result, where these great and wonderful psychologists can tell you all they can tell you about what they did to produce this magical or miraculous result, but nobody else can do the miraculous result, because that's the only person who's got that capability. But this one is one that anybody can use, hand it to them, and they'll produce the same results as, you know, the top experts and other people at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I've been using the word itch because these hives are so itchy. I've been thinking, I have been itching to do X, Y, and Z. I've been itchy about this. I've been itchy about that. No wonder I'm itching. But I haven't found any, I haven't found my way to the source of it at all. But, you know, if you tell a person you've chosen this, they're going to just punch you in the nose.
Cancel that thought.
Cancel the thought, yeah. Well, you're far away. But that's good. That's good. I've never known how to connect the two wagons. I can certainly even end up feeling better after doing a worksheet, but I don't know why something lets up. But that isn't deep enough, obviously, is it? There's some more work to be done. I've just been given a gumdrop or something on the way to finding resolution.
You know, a good self-inquiry at this stage with this that's going on might be to ask yourself the question, is there anything that in my life that I haven't or I'm not dealing with that gets under my skin? Or anything that irritates me? But there's your work. There's where you take your next worksheet. And when you give when you open the veil, that energy that's toxic. Fortunately, you have an immune system and you have a detox system, and so it's using the best eliminative organ for your condition that it can use right now, and that's your skin. But when you open the veil of your temple and create an exit point for that energy to be transmuted and, as that passage in Micah said, cast into the sea, directly removed from you, when the veil of your temple opens, then that energy will be exposed to active love. It will process and disappear from your structure. And that's where the forgiveness occurs. Right now, your structure, thank it, it's doing the best it can. It's using the best, the largest eliminative organ in the body is the skin. And it's using that to eliminate whatever that toxic energy is about. And, it may be about nothing whatsoever in your world or in your external life. It may be that you hit a new vitality level and some old, perhaps even ancient energy is now processing out of your structure. And this is the best way that your eliminative channels can open to let that energy move.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, so breathe into that and be with that, and ask your skin, what are you doing? What's going on here? And get really quiet and listen. Jeannie has an interesting story that she's going to share with us. She fact-checked me yesterday. I gave a quote from George Washington Carver, and the quote was actually spoken by a different person, who was Booker T. Washington. It wasn't from George Washington Carver, although the two are related, and she actually has a cool story to share with it. But when we juxtaposition things that don't belong together, sometimes things get confusing, and I had these two who are related in my mind, and I switched the quote from Booker T to George. So Jeannie, why don't you share that? It's kind of a cool story, and the upshot of it in context of this conversation is George Washington Carver was able to listen. So go for it, Jeannie. Thank you for fact-checking me on that and catching that, because it opens a whole really sweet piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, it does. There's actually 3 people that are involved. When I started looking up the quote and I saw that it was Booker T, and it gets confusing because you got 2 Washingtons there. But there was first a gentleman who was born in Maui to missionary parents in 1839. He was white, but when he became an American soldier, he led the African American soldier units. And then later he became an educator, and he is best known as an educator, founding and becoming the first principal of the normal school, whatever that means, for African Americans and later Native American pupils in Virginia. And that became Hampton University. A normal school?
I think a normal school at that point, if you remember in slavery, African Americans were not, or slaves, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it was Irish or whoever it was, were not allowed to learn to read or write. So there was no schooling. So after the Civil War, things opened up and they created schools that were somewhat akin to what whites had already had. So I think that's where the normal school idea comes from.
Oh, okay. And he actually created the Hampton University Museum, too. He's the founder of it, which is the oldest African-American museum in the country and the oldest museum in Virginia. So here's a white man that has done all of this. And it says his best student was Booker T. Washington. And if you read the whole story, apparently Booker T., he was born in slavery. And after the emancipation, that his family moved from Virginia to West Virginia. West Virginia had seceded from the state, and so it was separate. And as a young man, he worked his way through the Hampton Institute, which at that time was historically a black college. And then he attended a seminary, and then he came back to the college to be invited by Samuel Armstrong to be on the staff. And the way these two men, how they saw each other was fabulous. Washington describes Armstrong as the most perfect specimen of man, physically, mentally, and spiritually, the most Christ-like. And and then he wrote a book called Up from Slavery, and he states in that book that the greatest impression on him I'm trying to read this, and it's small, at Hampton was General Samuel Armstrong. He was the noblest, rarest human being that he ever had the privilege to meet. He said one might have removed from Hampton all of the buildings, all the classrooms, all the teachers, and all the industries, and given the men and women there the opportunity of coming into daily contact with Armstrong, that would have been enough of an education. And then he went on to say, and this is the quote that Michael used, it is now long ago that I learned this lesson from Samuel Armstrong and resolved that I would permit no man, no matter what his color might be, to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him.
Oh, lovely.
Breathing with you,
and
sweetie.
Then to take it a step further, there was George Washington Carver, who was also an enslaved person. He was born an enslaved person. And he also then met Booker T. Washington, and he went to the university, and they really, it was almost like a competition almost between the two of them, which one could create the most. But then this was Carver, George Washington Carver. During one of his lectures, he described the conversation with God that got him started studying the peanut. He said, I asked, "Dear Creator, please tell me what the universe was made for." And the Creator answered, "You want to know too much for that little mind of yours. Ask something more your size." So then I asked, "Dear Creator, tell me what man was made for." And again, the great Creator replied, "Little man, you still ask too much. Cut down the extent of your request and improve your intent." So then I asked, "Please, Mr. Creator, will you tell me why the peanut was made?" That's better, but even then, that's infinite. What do you want to know about the peanut? "Mr. Creator, can I make milk out of the peanut?" The Creator says, "What kind of milk do you want? Good Jersey milk or just plain boarding house milk?" And then the great Creator taught me how to take the peanut apart and put it back together. And Carver revolutionized the economy, the agricultural economy, by showing that there were over 300 products that could be derived from the peanut. And there are reports that say, it includes all the food products, chili sauce, caramel sauce, peanut sausage, mayonnaise, coffee. So many things that he made just from the peanut. And then he also created shampoos and shaving creams and hand lotions, insecticides, and it goes on. The list just goes on. And it said the peanut industry had become $200 million industry and chief product of Alabama in 1938. He held 3 patents. However, he never patented most of his discoveries because he said, "God gave it to me. How can I sell it to someone else?"
That's gorgeous.
So the impact,
I just think it would be an awesome film.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
but the impact that each of these men had on each other's lives is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And literally Carver spawned out of that question the whole peanut industry, which, at that time he was in Alabama, but, just absolutely huge. And 200 million in 1938 would be like probably 20 billion today.
Yeah.
So it's really something. So to me, the piece of that one is that we need to train ourselves to listen. And to do that,
I was just going to say that he finishes that with saying it's an excellent model for how to listen when God speaks.
Mm-hmm.
And who was it that said we have to get our bloated nothingness out of the way? There it is.
I love it. Yeah,
how do you do that? Forgiveness. Collapse that chatterbox called the mind. Cultivate your relationship with love, the truth of who you are, and everything will be handed to us. And what's handed to us, because what's often inside of us isn't Dr. Feelgood, what's handed to us isn't always going to be Dr. Feelgood. But, wow, what an opportunity.
And while it was Booker T that said that he would not permit another man to narrow and degrade his soul by making him hating, Carver gave his students 8 things. He said these were 8 cardinal rules. Be clean both inside and out. Neither look up to the rich or down to the poor. Lose, if need be, without squealing. And win without bragging. Always be considerate of women, children, and older people. Be too brave to lie. Be too generous to cheat. Take your share of the world, but let others take theirs.
Great stuff. Be too brave to lie. Wow. That's an amazing one.
And we do have another hand up.
Pretty awesome.
Good.
Pretty awesome. All right, well, let's say hello. Let's bring our other caller into the conversation.
All right, it's Celinda. Welcome.
Hello, hey there, young lady.
Celinda.
Welcome.
Hello,
Celinda.
Hear me because my button just accidentally picked my finger. No. Okay.
The old mute button challenge. I understand that one.
Yeah.
How are you?
That button just jumped right out on my finger. Anyway, I am good, and I have a couple of thoughts about what that wonderful conversation you just had with Susan and Jeannie. Jeannie, by the way, will you put those links about T. Washington, what's his name? T. Booker Washington and
Booker T. Washington.
Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver or whatever their names were, because that's fascinating, especially wrapping it up with George Washington Carver's eight principles that he gave. That's sweet. When you said about Micah, where it says, I will cast your sins into the sea, on the first line of my poem I wrote, my little Aramaic Gospel in a Nutshell poem, for me, blessings, dear one, in whom I am, wave of one sea, a hologram, that thing, the sins into that sea, reminded me of that one sea we all are. My impression is that's the energy of our being. And that when life comes in and we are willing to let go of our quote-unquote sins, that coalesced energy we hold within us, informed energy that doesn't belong there, then life, which is neutral, can go in and transform or transmute, as you called it, that energy into something wholly good and beautiful. And so I just wanted to share that.
Cool. All right. Well, any other thoughts for you?
Not at the moment, but just keep on keeping on because it's all growing brain cells in me.
It's what it takes, isn't it? It's an awesome process when you understand that that's what it takes. I love it when people hang around the work long enough to realize that that's where the solution lies. I often watch people who'll touch into the work and they get really excited and they'll do 2 works and go, oh, well, I got it now, bye. And I don't hear from them again until the next level of trauma comes up. So it's nice when people hang around and use it and really start to develop that whole comprehension and process for themselves. It's pretty awesome. And to realize that the only real teacher is within us. It's not out there somewhere.
Yes, and also I've been doing some work around my willingness, and I'm coming to a very calm feeling about it, which is to bring the same energy to it that Christ would, the Christ in myself. That is gentleness and acceptance and allowance for that unwillingness, because only within that context am I going to learn to soften enough and to breathe enough to let it go and expand my energy outward instead of shriveling up in contraction. So I appreciate that.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, to keep bringing the breath up, and opening is just fabulous to have that tool. So nice work, young lady. That's fabulous. Awesome.
And I'm still challenged with the worksheet, so I'm glad that I'm very happy that Tim is committing to one worksheet every single program as long as he can, or in the context of that program as he can. And but
is there a question?
Working. Oh yeah, lungs. That's where I was going. Thank you for redirecting me. I got lost in Wonderland again. My lungs are just one indicator for me of my unfinished work, because I've been challenged with lungs all along, as you have.
I understand that one really well.
And then the candidiasis is another giant one that I'm working with and looking at. And also I have come to the conclusion it is an endemic form, and that's why it's been with me. I came in with it probably.
Are you a candy eater?
Nope. I don't eat any sugar of any kind other than what's actually in the fruit itself, or the foods themselves. And we eat only whole foods here. That's why I spend about 2 to 3 hours a day, maybe on a busy day, just being the keeper of the stores and making dinner. And bless Larry's heart, he does his own breakfast and lunch, as long as I keep him provided with goodies, and then it works. But then this cataract condition I have, I've realized that it is really an expression and an offering of healing for withdrawal, because that's been my MO, is to withdraw and to withhold and to keep myself safe. And so,
how about a mind shifter?
Let me get a piece of paper here and a pencil. Okay.
2 things to write down. One, I would do a search for Bravo, BRAVO. In fact, I'll just forward this email to you.
Oh, perfect. And you also were going to send me the Power Person, the complete Power Person worksheet, so I could get on it. Yeah, that would be great. The last one that you all did. And and then so Bravo, what is it? Bravo?
It's a probiotic. It's one of the problems with candidiasis is that there's an imbalance in the microorganisms in the flora of the body. And the best probiotic that I know of is called Bravo. There's actually, I'm forwarding you an email from a woman in Florida who has a group that purchases it. It comes out of Germany. It's actually in Germany. It's a standalone cancer treatment. Where your average probiotic in the health food store, or what have you here, or what you get in your yogurts or what have you, is maybe 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 probiotic strains. This is medically made in Germany, and there, if I remember correctly, something like 48 different strains. And it's the best probiotic that I know of, and that might be enough to get your back into balance, especially if it's endemic, to get your gut flora back into balance. Might be helpful.
Yeah, I also have a bacterial overgrowth overlay. So between those two, it's a pretty 1-2 KO punch. And I have discovered that I don't do well with a high purine diet. That makes a big difference. So I am finding myself. Pardon?
You say you're not doing sugar. Do you do any fructose?
Nope.
Oh, good for you. You're on track with that.
Yeah, and
so mind shifter.
One thing I am doing, Michael, is Dr. Zach Bush's ion.
Right.
Formula. Yeah, that is helping too, I think.
Yeah, Zach is doing some great stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead and send me those links that you were talking about. Okay. And then I think I'm good. Those are probably my 3 top issues, and they deal with safety, abandonment, and nurturing.
So I've got a mind shifter for you yet if you get your pen ready.
Got it.
It's safe and healing.
Got it.
And the delight of my life.
I love that word, delight. I'm looking for my one word for this year. That might be it. Got it.
To enter fully into the world. And when I do, I am enthusiastically embraced. By all that I meet. Period. And I'm going to add a second sentence to it.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay.
And then a second sentence, which I don't usually do. I am embraced fully breathe. Because of the gentleness of my presence as love.
That's perfect, because the other thing I forgot to mention is I have this shaking in my left hand that I've mentioned before. And I think because I have chosen withdrawal and fear. Are you there?
I'm here.
Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, good. Because I lost you the other day. And what I'm realizing, beginning to realize, is that because I chose withdrawal and avoid as my MO, what happened was I shoved the hostility part down into my unconscious. And I'm just sure that this left hand, which I'm left-handed, that the left side of my body, which is the inside of expression, is that I've blocked it. I've blocked it all my life in order to survive. And it's very, very unhappy at the moment as I begin to allow it. And I began to realize that I do not have to protect it or defend it. I would say defend it. I do have to allow it.
Well, the most powerful probiotic that you're going to find, which will eradicate the bacterial and candida overgrowth, is your cells being fueled by and connected to the truth of who you are as active present love.
And
that's the most powerful probiotic there is.
That's where I want to go. That's one of the reasons why I have preferred to choose. Why don't we go to cause? Why don't we go to cause? Life is so simple, and that's what I've been working towards. And this is where this healing work is really, really exciting me in a delightful, enthusiastic sort of way. In my way, it's enthusiasm and delight. And that's it. Thank you.
So with what you said in the last few minutes, there was one major word that lit up energetically for me in your speaking.
Okay.
And so I just offer that this may be the key energy that's fueling these anti-life organisms in you. And that's the word That's the word hostility.
Yep.
My offering would be there's still a part of your structure that's feeding off of that unconscious hostility and presses it out through tissue to the world. And that
could be the
when
basis for all. Okay.
Take a breath. When you open the veil of your temple and allow the space for that energy to rear its head fully in the presence of love, that's when it will be dissolved, and that's when that other is going to disappear. And the probiotic is just something that can assist you along the way.
Beautiful. That's what the worksheet's on.
Yeah. So I look at every time in my life, go right back to your earliest memories, every time in your life that you had some sort of hostility you recognized was running your mind, or maybe you didn't recognize it, somebody else told you that it was, and I'd start, putting the subject line of those down and do each of those worksheets.
Every time in my life when I recognize hostility running my mind.
Yes. Your mind or your mouth.
Or my body.
Yep.
Or that somebody told me when I didn't recognize. Okay, got it.
And it's very likely the power person dynamic. It's probably been going on for generations. And that's why it's so deeply embedded.
Right. And that's why I want that power person sheet. I want to look at it. It seems to be my next step. Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
We'll get it to you, young lady.
Okay, I'll let you know when I find my new power word for this year. Last one was
Awesome.
a
Well, it sounds like maybe you had it.
Yeah, delight. Very
Mm-hmm.
good.
That's a delightful word.
I know, we can give all of ourselves permission to be delightful. It's been denied from us for too long.
Like the denial somewhere outside of you, it has somebody.
The denial.
Do you suppose somebody else is responsible for that than you?
No, because I downloaded it. The buck stops here, or what we say.
There you go.
The buck stops here. Okay, take care.
All right, blessings. Nice work. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right.
Well, since you're in as a regular
Well, Miss
caller,
Jeannie.
you can't hear the announcement that you've got 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Well, then, with 90 seconds left, I'll just invite everybody to create the best year yet of your eternal lives. Hold space, and it's time for healing on planet Earth. It's time for a mass shift. Time for us to move into critical mass, and each one that becomes the leavening is what's going to change the game in the world, and we're here to change that game. So glad you're on the team and part of supporting us doing it. Have a blessed day.